Do you guys celebrate Thanksgiving over there? Again, I remember that this is the celebration of the Americans leaving your country, so I'm guessing no. But like, do you, since a lot of not a lot of the world, but we like to think a lot of the world kind of revolves around our operations and stuff. Do you guys observe the day as like a all right? Some things are closed and like a lot of high like Apple, around the world. No,
Completely normal
just
day
a
in every
regular
way.
Thursday.
But answer me this. So you do turkeys on Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
but do you do turkey at Christmas?
no,
See, that's what we do turkey at Christmas. So we've
I
just
wish
taken that and done that at Christmas instead.
Christmas dinner.
So
I
there's a
mean,
little parallel there.
I'm sure there's some people that do turkeys. I mean, honestly, Christmas dinner should be exactly the same as Thanksgiving. It's the comfort foods: turkey, mashed potatoes, corn, stuffing. Like I would do that again in a month. That's fine with me.
Yeah,
But
only a
it's
month
it's it's
apart.
like variations. I think everybody is different, especially their culture. Like we're Italian, so it's very popular to do fish on Christmas Eve, I believe. And then I think Christmas Day, there's like a different thing. I don't know. Nowadays, all of my, especially since I'm married to someone who's not Italian, so like things are just different. So we just kind of have a hodgepodge of food. It's usually fine. Um, but Thanksgiving is where it's at. It's a great holiday. You just get to eat, you get to watch football, and then you fall asleep. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it brings us into what our first topic's going to be, Black Friday. So I mean Black Friday has really, and this is I'm rolling my eyes. I just want everyone to know that as I say this, I am rolling my eyes at myself. But after having this job, Black Friday has become something that I don't care about anymore because, and again, I'm rolling my eyes. I understand how this sounds. There's really nothing for me to go out there and get at this point. Like it's very, unless it's like a home appliance or something that doesn't. It's like I use Black Friday now as no longer a tech related, find, and it's more so like get Black Friday deals on sheets or if I need a new washer dryer, which thankfully we don't. Um, so yes, I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I don't have to go out and blow money on tech items because we do get to test a lot of these. But like at the same time, I loved after Thanksgiving dinner because it would cut into Thanksgiving for us. It was earlier and earlier. It was never Friday. It was always Thursday and evening. We'd be lining up outside, try to get a couple $100 off a TV or something. And now it's just I don't know. It's changed so much. What's Black Friday like for you guys out there? Is it actually on Friday,
Uh,
or do you guys observe that
well,
in the first place?
well, it's come over from the States. It's
Okay.
still quite a new thing over here. But ever since Prime Day started, and now there's two Prime Days,
Oh yeah.
I think everyone is a little fatigued with these kind of discount days that become discount weeks.
And then it's Cyber
Um,
Monday and like
yeah,
I don't
so
know.
I think that there is just a little bit of fatigue with it, but there are still good deals to be taken advantage of. And
Yeah.
even though Apple doesn't actually call it Black Friday, of course, Apple marketing won't utter those words. They
Right.
just call it their special shopping event, um, and that's still taking place. And while some of the deals aren't great, some of them seem pretty good to me. Like on the Apple Watch SE, which I believe is already $249, you can get a $50 gift card with that, which to
Yeah, I
me
mean,
is really good. At that point, you're getting an Apple Watch for under $200.
yeah. It would be nice if they gave you the gift card first and then you can use it on the
Yeah,
full. Just make it like get the option of like you pay 250 and you can get I mean it's the same deal or just make it $200. Just I understand they won't do that cuz that's not how it works for them. They would much rather you pay that 250 and then there's nothing rarely is there anything there that you can get for $50. So they know, they got you.
yeah.
They know you can go and buy.
And chances are you probably at some point over the next year, if you're the sort of
Oh
person that
yeah,
say
yeah.
you're buying an Apple Watch SE for a Christmas gift,
It's
they know you're going to be the sort of person that in the next year might pay for some AirPods, some AirTags,
Yeah.
That'll buy you an iPhone case, a $50 gift
Yeah,
card.
you're
So
definitely getting 50 free dollars, and you're gonna use it at some point. For the most part, I would say most people who are buying Apple products are most likely to return in the next, 6 to 12 months to buy something else. So 100%. Is there any other deals out there? I have not looked at this at all. I used to be so on top of all of this that I don't know, and now I'm like kind of grateful that I don't have to worry about. All right, let's cut this Thanksgiving dinner short. I need to go wait in line.
Well, the thing with Black Friday as well is that the deals are coming and going and the prices are changing all the time.
Yeah.
So you kind of really need to shop around and don't just assume that, say, Apple has the best deals on its own devices, because chances are other retailers may have things that suit your circumstances better. Maybe certain color options, certain storage configurations will be discounted more heavily from certain retailers. So it's definitely worth checking around. But you can maximize Apple's offers if you say do a trade in. If you're the sort of person that wants to get a trade in, you can still get the full gift card. So in those situations, if you were, say, upgrading to the latest generation Apple Watch SE, that might be an even cheaper way to do it.
And of course, shameless plug, but the crack team over at MacRumors.com has already assembled and put out articles in which you can find all of the great deals. And not just on Apple stuff. I mean, there is all the stuff for Apple products at the top, but then like Walmart has their Black Friday plans already out. Week-long sales. You can get TVs and devices and video games. What's the one thing that you want right now that's not an Apple product that if it had a good Black Friday deal you would get?
Oh, that's a tricky question. Uh, oh, I don't know. You put me on the spot there. But I'm so in the Apple ecosystem, and I'm so spoilt by having bought myself everything I want in the Apple ecosystem.
Right, that's
I
the
don't know.
problem. That's the
I mean,
problem.
one of the things that I would say is a great thing to pick up over the weekend, and if I hadn't already got one, then I would say is a good thing. It would be something like a Kindle, because as ever, Amazon do really hefty discounts, and a Kindle is going to provide a much better reading experience than you get on an iPad.
That's a good
So that
idea.
probably would have been mine if I didn't have one.
That's a good idea. I should look into those because, like, well, I don't know. We have not given our kids like tablets or anything. Only if we're like on a trip and they use it to watch stuff. But like my son's in kindergarten now, and they're using tablets for learning, and he generally likes using those games and stuff. But like, I don't know. There's still some restrictions on like using a school tablet at home, and I just prefer that he has his own. But then my daughter wants to use one, and it's just like we have so many iPads that like I can totally give them one, but the problem is like there's I don't know. I feel like a Kindle's just better suited for a very young kid right off the bat,
Yeah,
for
and they
like
sell
games
a
and
they sell
learning
a kid's
stuff.
Kindle.
Yeah.
Well, the Kindle, I mean, it depends. I mean, if you get a proper e-ink Kindle, it wouldn't even do games. It would
Oh
just
yeah,
be
yeah.
books.
I'm thinking more
So
of the
that
tab, like the
that
Fire, like the. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Do they still call them Kindle Fire tablets, or is it just
yeah, I
Fire
think they
tablets?
do. Yeah,
Okay, I don't want to get confused. I know that's what they used to call them, and then I know they might have like switched away from those names, but like that's what I would look at. Yeah, I would love personally. I guess maybe that I don't have everything. You don't have everything, but like I would love to actually use like a proper e-ink tablet for reading, just so that I don't get distracted by anything else. That's the real
yeah.
problem.
And I find, after spending my whole day looking at displays that actually emit light, your eyes can just really take a rest when you're looking at something that uses e-ink, and it provides a much
Lulls
better
you to
way to
sleep.
unwind. Yeah. It's great. It's great for reading before bed. It's so much
Yeah.
of a less sort of anxiety inducing thing than like looking at social media. Or I would say it's a good purchase if you don't have one, a Kindle.
Definitely. And then there's not. I don't know. It's PlayStation 5 still impossible to find. Good luck, but maybe this would probably be your best bet if you're out there looking for a PS5 or an Xbox, uh,
Yeah.
for them to be in stock. Although I can't imagine there's a whole lot of them. But yeah, tons of
The
deals out there.
the more the sort of the entry level Xbox has definitely got some heavy discounts at the moment.
Oh yeah, the
So if
series,
you're looking at
the Series S, right?
casual console gaming, yeah, that
Oh
that would be this is a good time to buy that as well.
An incredible deal. My main thing for people out there is if it's time for AirPods Pro upgrade, definitely check out Amazon's for $199. Like that is a great deal. I'm using the threes right now, but I always use the pros. I don't know why, but the threes are just the ones that are here on this desk at all times, and I'm far too lazy to go get the pros, but they're so good. Even though,
Yeah,
fun fact,
we've talked a lot about this with how great the AirPods Pro 2 are.
yeah,
Such a good upgrade. Even if you've got the first generations, it still might be worth upgrading
and
because there's that many new features.
I highly recommend. Now you can do this. I don't think I've ever done this though, but I want to say you can buy the AirPods from anywhere and then add on Apple Care afterwards. Correct? You don't have to get it
Yes,
from Apple.
I think
Okay.
so, yeah.
Okay. Because I washed mine last week.
Right.
So yeah, I like
It must be water
noticed.
resistant though. Did they not survive?
No. Well, one did not. One did, but it was not great. And at that point, in my mind, I associated that one with forever being tainted anyway. So I just opted to get them both replaced. And so I paid for Apple Care Plus, which gives you the theft and like accidental damage. And it was weird. Like I tried to do it online, and it said I owed $199, and I'm like, well, what's the point of that? Like, why would? But if you go into the store, it cost me $29. There's something going on with that. So just if you're confused and you think that you shouldn't be paying that much for a replacement, go to the store and they'll make sure. He said maybe I think at the end of checkout they would have like reduced that price. I just didn't want to take any risks because I was like, at that point I might as well just buy a new set. But yeah, I washed mine. One didn't make it, and they swapped them out for like $20. Can't go wrong there. Got a whole new set, and so good. I was so sad that I saw one at the bottom of the washer machine. Thank God I didn't put them in the dryer. But yeah, the one made it. I think the other one would have made it had it not fallen out of the pocket, because the one that made it was the one in the pocket. So that's a lot to ask for a. And I washed it twice because it was one of those loads where you washed it and then you forgot about it for a while. And so you restarted it because you don't want it to just be sitting there smelling bad. So, like, yeah, it's been through a lot. I'm impressed that the one even lasted.
AirPods generally last quite well in the wash. Even when they were not water resistant, they do seem to survive. But 2 washes, I think that you'd be pretty lucky if it survived that.
No. Do you have any other? Because this is a good transition into what our main topic is going to be. It's the slow time of the year, folks. So there's not a lot of stuff going on right now in terms of immediate pressing news. But we thought it would be fun to like talk about the products that we generally use from Apple and how we use them. And maybe it might not even have to be all Apple related, but just like stuff that we use on a regular basis that we think are good products. And that we would highly recommend, and I would put AirPods Pro 2 as one of them. Hartley, what about you?
Well, I would agree with AirPods Pro 2. I think they're a great place to start. I actually I have all 3 sets of AirPods, which I accept is a luxury that not everyone is willing to undertake, and I do mean to sell one of them when I can choose which one I want to get rid of. But I find that the AirPods Pro 2 are the most well-rounded of them, whereas the others all kind of have flaws. And I love the AirPods 3. They're so comfortable. But then the AirPods Max sound quality is so much better, but then they're not so comfortable for a long period of time. So I always find myself gravitating towards the AirPods Pro 2. But I probably should get rid of the other 2 pairs and just stick to one pair.
I would say it. Yeah, I mean that's a really good breakdown because I also have all 3. And I use all 3, which is weird because you'll be like, why? And really, the AirPods 3 get worn for long periods of time because they're so comfortable. And so, like, the podcast, or if I'm just, like, going to be listening to music for a really long time, maybe sitting at my desk working on an edit or something, I don't need noise cancellation in this environment. It's plenty quiet. And so, you just want something that's comfortable and the tips don't go in your ear so far. But, like, then they don't sound quite as good and you don't have noise cancellation for when you need it. And then the AirPods Max sound amazing, but they're kind of uncomfortable for very long periods of use. They're pretty heavy on the head at times. And, they're not as mobile as you might think they are. So they're very kind of
And the
required.
smart case is bad.
And the smart case is horrendous. And that just kind of leaves it for specific use cases when I want to use those. So really, the AirPods Pro 2 are kind of the perfect blend of both of those. So they are comfortable for long periods of use, but not as comfortable as one would be. And they sound amazing. They're not as good as the AirPods Pro Max, but they're certainly much better than the AirPods Pro than the AirPods 3, in my opinion, at least. So yeah, I mean, they're just kind of like, if you just need to pick one, that's the one that I would pick at all times. If I had to get rid of the other ones, that's what I would go for.
I would agree. And it's kind of strange that you do find a place for all three, which is why I'm struggling to actually bring myself to get rid of one, because I do find on a weekly basis I am using all three sets.
Right. But the normal person at home who's like, dude, I'm not buying all three. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Like that's
But if you were the sort of person that, maybe you've already got a set of AirPods and you're looking to maybe get an additional pair, AirPods Max is something else that is heavily discounted over Black Friday. Maybe if it helps you justify it to think that you will actually use it separately, then you can kind of have the confidence that you will be able to make them fit in.
What's the price for AirPods Max these days for Black Friday?
Well, they're normally at full price, $549, but you should be able to get them for about $449 on Amazon, I would expect, which is a little bit more sensible. And there's no sign of a new model anytime soon. So it's still a pretty good time to pick up some AirPods Max.
When you say soon, you mean like within the next 2 or 3 months? I would say I'm hoping well, what is the rumor for that? My hopes are by March.
There is no rumor of new AirPods Max. There is no information about what they could feature. We know that they're missing a load of features from the AirPods Pro,
right?
So there's obvious things to come to it. But the last we heard was that Apple was actually not working on new ones. So it's kind of in an awkward place where we're not really sure what's happening with them. So it's still a good time to buy, I would say.
So probably a good time to buy, and if there were new ones anytime soon, it might just be a color refresh type deal.
Potentially, although even at this stage, I'm not even sure they would do that, because the hardware is outdated. So compared to the AirPods Pro 2, so I don't know if they would even want to highlight that by doing a colors refresh.
They can't go more than 2 years, could they?
It will be 2 years in December, so it will be pretty easy for them to hit 2 years.
This December,
and yes,
okay.
So we're talking. Effectively, in a couple of weeks, the AirPods Max will be two years old.
So it's probably on the same timeline as the Pros then. Wasn't the Pros a little over 2 years, or was that 3 years?
Pros were 3 years. But AirPods seem to move in 3-year cycles.
Okay.
So if you think 2020 was AirPods Max, 2021 was the AirPods 3, and then 2022 is AirPods Pro 2. So theoretically, next year, we should, under that timeline, see new AirPods Max. But if they are
towards the end of the year,
that's why it's still a good time to buy.
I agree. And plus, I mean, for most people who are probably considering an AirPods Max and want the best deal and save a lot of money, I would imagine whatever new features they possibly put into it are probably not going to be as concerned. They're going to be back to $550 at least. And what could they realistically do that would make a lot of average consumers just be like, I'm probably good with spending $400. Maybe some places even have sub $400 if you can find it. Real heavy deals, maybe renewed versions. I would highly recommend if you can find anything that's in good shape for that cheap. I would pull the trigger on them. But
yeah, I would agree. But what about the Apple Watch?
What about the Apple Watch? Which one am I using?
Well, I know you're a big fan of the Apple Watch Ultra. So why do you feel that the Apple Watch Ultra sort of goes that extra mile for you where other Apple Watch models haven't?
Well, first off, can we talk about this band? This is the last band that I was able to get because I don't know why. It was just not ready at launch. This is what did they call this? The trail loop or trail band?
I'm not even. I get very confused between those two. The one with the hook and the one with the Velcro.
It's not the one. The one with the hook was the one that was readily available. It was the first one it's the orange one that you see in all the press images. That one came at launch, but then there was another one that's kind of like a fancier sport loop. I think it's called the trail loop. I'm looking this up just so it's the trail loop. That is my favorite band of all the Ultra bands. It is. I like this like blackish gray with the orange accent, but for some reason at launch it was pushed to November, so like right off the bat, and I
Yet it's
still
just the
think
same
it's
as a sport band,
yeah,
effectively,
and
as
I
a sport loop.
yeah, but it's definitely the one that fits the best. You could just put a sport band on or sport loop on this. You don't have to use the ones that are dedicated to the Ultra. But if you want it to look proper here when it connects with the actual watch itself, you probably want to get a dedicated Ultra band, and this is the best one. The hook one's fine, but it is kind of a pain to like take on and off. It fits very well, but it could be kind of annoying. I don't know that I've ever used the Ocean one very much. I have it, but like I don't know. It doesn't feel as comfortable to me as this loop one. So I'm really happy with the band. I just got it like last week or so. Why do I think it's the best one to get? Personally, I just think it's got the best features, and the battery life is so good that I can go sometimes multiple days without charging it, and I don't worry about like it dying. It has never once died on me in the middle of the day at all. The other day I forgot to charge it. I left it on my couch. I took it off and I put it back on, and I didn't charge it until the next day. So I mean, it just works really well. And I'm actually being more active in doing workout tracking and things that it actually, uses, more battery life, and it's still great.
So would you say that you use your Apple Watch more now because it's an Apple Watch Ultra? Or do you use it more the same amount? Because I'm wondering if that larger display and having a sort of a device that feels more substantially refreshed encourages you to use it a little more in place of where you might have used your iPhone.
Yes, I have noticed that I've been using the keyboard to actually type out messages, or actually I've been using Swipe. I really like Swipe on it. And it's so much easier just with that little bit of a larger display there. Well, I mean, it is bigger, to be able to get like correct words put out there, and not feel like you're going to make like a ton of mistakes. So I have used it more so with that recently, actually. I don't know why, but just a lot more now. I've been putting my phone just in a different room. And if I get a message that I feel like responding to, I don't hesitate. But on my older watches or smaller watches, I probably wouldn't. I would just go find my phone and use it. But I do find myself using it more for sleep tracking because I know it's not going to die and I don't have to charge it in the middle of the next day, because I would just forget these things in habit of like, I take it off the charger in the morning, I put it on, I go about my day. Now I don't really have to do that. I could track my sleep and then put it on the fast charger for a little bit before bed and kind of always have enough to, do that kind of like habit and get into that routine. I like the look of it more than the others. It is kind of big and does get in the way sometimes, I will say. And there's one weird bug about one of the watch faces. For some reason, when you're wearing long sleeves, I feel like it thinks that I'm like kind of interacting with it. And so I do often find that the watch is like not giving me those full screen notifications, when it like pops up and
Right. Yeah.
it's giving me the banner ones down, and it's like I'm not on my watch. Why is that happening? And so I've noticed that I've missed some notifications because of that. And I don't know if it's a bug with one specific watch face or not, but I've noticed it with that new what is this watch face that they called? I don't even know. Where you can put the 8 complications. Yeah. I've noticed it with that one specifically. So, but other than that, I mean, great battery life. I like the look of it. It's definitely more premium in terms of the materials used and everything. It feels substantial, looks great for me personally. The bands, it's going to be kind of hit and miss. You can use any band that you want, but it is not going to look 100% as clean as it might.
You want the matching lugs with the titanium. And ideally, I think the thing that's so nice, say, about the band that you're wearing is the orange accent obviously matches the action button color. So it all kind of ties in together really nicely.
And the crown has the orange on there. I don't know if people can see that, but yeah, I mean, it's really good. I would recommend it, but I mean, if you're just like, I just want the best Apple Watch, what we said, the SE before is probably the best Apple Watch to get your foot in the door and get all the features that most people probably use. or would want to use, and you could save hundreds of dollars. So it's not for everyone. But if you're like, hey, what's the best Apple Watch that you can buy in terms of features and battery life and all that, then the Ultra is just kind of a no-brainer to me. But I can understand that it wouldn't be for everybody. I know you don't use it. You use the stainless steel.
That is right. I have small wrists, so I don't think I could get away with the Ultra. And I also prefer the kind of I prefer a polished stainless steel look because I'm sort of bothered by everything matching, and so I know if I ever I don't wear any jewelry right now, but I know if I do wear some jewelry, then that's going to be a polished look, and I would like it to tie in with that. And I also know that even just like the accents on my glasses, they're a polished look. So I like everything to kind of tie in together, even things like a belt buckle. So
Yeah.
it's that sort of thing that bothers me to the point where I would like to have everything just looking a bit more sort of minimal and tied in together. And if they did a smaller version, I would probably be very tempted to buy it. But those two factors are what decide it for me. But I can't say that when I've seen it in the Apple Store, I haven't been extremely tempted.
It is a very tempting product, but I mean, for as I said, for most people out there who just kind of want to use it for workouts and notifications, which I feel like that's got to be what most people use it for. Like they want to track their workouts, get notifications, and occasionally be able to control some things without their phone. Then you can get away with a Series 7 if you can find a good deal on that.
Yeah.
Definitely an SE, although you're going to be missing some core features. I don't think they're all deal breakers. I do want to throw a shout out to, this has actually taken the place of my wedding ring for now because I don't want to wear multiple rings. This is the Oura Ring. This thing is actually really nice in terms of what it can do for health features specifically. And I really like it for tracking sleep because it is the least obtrusive, like in your face thing that you could have for sleep, aside from maybe something underneath your mattress where you wouldn't feel it at all. If you sleep with your rings, a wedding ring or anything, with I would imagine most people probably do. I mean, they tell you that you should put it on your pointer finger, but I've had no issues tracking all of the metrics on this finger. It works, but I think you can just get maybe a little bit more accurate or better results at times on your I think it's your index finger. But I just didn't want to wear multiple rings, so I dealt with it. And I've gotten very accurate. I've been comparing it to the Apple Watch, and it can do now blood oxygen. It does really advanced sleep tracking metrics. It can track workouts. I wish it kind of tied in with the Apple Watch, so I didn't have to like go into two different things to tell it
Does
I'm
it
working
sync
out.
to Apple Health at all? Some of those metrics should.
I believe so, yes. But I don't quote me on that because I did not look.
Right.
I'm pretty sure, but I could be wrong. It has its own app, which is honestly really good. And you can do active heart rate. It's constantly monitoring. It's basically. I think I need to do a full video on this for sure, comparing the two because it's definitely
interesting.
capable. It's definitely capable of doing all of the things your watch can do from a health and fitness standpoint, and potentially even more than what your watch could do. And it's very minimal and out of the way. If you don't like wearing watches, then this could be the next thing. So if you've been on, looking for an Oura Ring and you're like, I don't know, maybe I should just get a watch, and you're, debating between the two, look for a deal on those. I don't know if there's any out there, but I would personally recommend it if you are looking for something like that.
Yeah, I think if that Apple Health functionality is there as well, even if you can't sync all of those metrics, that would also make it really tie in very nicely, especially if you don't want to wear your Apple Watch all the time.
Yeah.
If you're the sort of person that doesn't want to wear your Apple Watch for sleep tracking, maybe that's when you like to charge it, or you only put your Apple Watch on for workouts and you prefer a mechanical watch. I can really see why something like that could work extremely well.
I'm gonna check the app because now I'm confused if it does or not. I feel like it should, and if it doesn't, they're missing out.
Well, some metrics should, but I can't imagine that all of them would. I imagine it will be like some of the Withings health equipment where you probably get some of the metrics synced through the Apple Health API.
Yeah, it does. I have it turned on. It says connect to health, sync your personal data and sleep details with the Apple Health app. So yeah, and Oh no, it does import work. It imports workouts from Apple Health, but I feel like it. I really need to look into this a little bit more. I've had it for a while, but I haven't been like properly using it. And actually, at one point, mine did have a defect, and so I was just wearing it as a regular ring, but it didn't work for the longest time until they just sent me my replacement. So I started to, get a little bit more active and have been more into it. So I need to like really dive into it before I give full thoughts. But so far, I really like what it does, and I can confirm tie in with Apple Health. So another reason to look into it. So that's another piece of tech, and that might be my one that I'll say that I use that's not technically an Apple product. What else are you? I mean, we've talked about this in different points, but your computer of choice, MacBook Pro, I believe.
Well, I use a Mac Mini during the day at a desk, but then when I want to move away from the desk and I want to kind of draw a line between sort of work and personal, especially when you work from home like I do, I find it really important to kind of separate those two worlds. And having two separate Macs enables me to do that. And the MacBook Pro is such a joy to use, the 14-inch M1 Pro, MacBook Pro, that it feels it feels so great to use, even if I'm not taking advantage of all of its power. Just the mini LED display, the keyboard. Obviously, I do a lot of writing, and I have nothing but good things to say about that machine. The Mac Mini, not so much. It gets me through my work. Just about. It's an M1 Mac Mini with 16 gigs of memory, and it struggles. It struggles even with just Safari tabs. I find I do have quite a few issues with it.
That's hilarious because pulling behind the curtains here, I was cursing the Mac Mini's name just before we even started this episode because I use a Mac Mini strictly because we had it for review, and it's just been sitting here, and I didn't want it to go to waste, so I use it on the other side here where this camera is pointing. Behind it, I have a monitor on a like rolling cart, and on the part of the cart, there's a Mac Mini, and I connect it to my camera here, and it's also connected to this, and I can see that's what I'm looking at when people are wondering why am I not looking on the camera. I kind of wanted it to be more conversational as if I'm looking at you, and also it's just, I don't know, it's weird to look into the camera and try to talk to somebody else. So that's a little pullback of how it works here, but I use the Mac Mini and it cannot, we've had a couple episodes where it works fine. But oftentimes, like I have my MacBook Pro here. That's what I'm currently recording this episode on because it is struggling to do. And this is the base model, cheapest M1 Mac Mini you can possibly get. And it's just not good. It's not a good experience. It's probably good for, I mean, I don't know. You even said it's not good for Safari tabs, so maybe it's not good for many.
Yeah, well, I don't do a lot of intense tasks. So it's mainly just writing and browsing a bunch of WordPress tabs.
Well, that's concerning that it can't handle that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it used to work better.
Yeah.
I have a lot of fond memories of this device because this was my first Apple Silicon Mac, and it is supposed to be the most powerful M1 machine as well, out of those initial ones that launched, because it's got that big fan and it's not got a battery, so it should be able to consume more power. But I always feel underwhelmed by the performance of it. And I've got a desktop app that lets me see what the cores are doing and the temperatures and the fans and all that sort of thing. So I'm interested in what it is doing, and it always just seems to be behaving very strangely with all of the efficiency cores maxed out, but then none of the performance cores used at all. But then sometimes all of the cores are completely maxed out. It doesn't seem to behave in a way that at least my MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro behaves. And I can throw anything at the M1 Pro, and it seems to handle it perfectly.
I think if you could get, I think 8 gigs of storage, and I just wouldn't get the base model. 8 gigs of storage and 256 gigs. I'm sorry, 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage is not enough, because we've talked about this. If you have if your storage is almost full, and you're trying to run a lot of these like applications that I've currently got. I've got like Safari with a bunch of tabs open. I've got Apple Notes. I've got, the recording software here. If I'm trying to do all that and my storage is getting full and then it's starting to, eat into your virtual, memory there, and then it's really slowing things down, I think that was really the part of it. And also, it suffered from Bluetooth issues a lot at launch, and I don't think it ever fully recovered. I have noticed some very weird connection issues. Primarily, the main reasons why it wasn't working so well with this software and recording the episodes is when I would throw my headphones on. All of a sudden, after like a minute of me talking to you, you would cut out. I can't hear you at all. And the only way it would ever like come back and stop slowing down and being real sluggish is if I just disconnected my AirPods. And so it's a good machine for like very basic use, but I really still think even then you should like definitely look at the 16 gigs of unified memory option, maybe bump that up a little bit and get a little bit of extra storage, or honestly just go with the MacBook. M2 MacBook Air, perfect.
Yeah, I think that when the Mac Mini is updated and we have M2 and M2 Pro options in there, that will make so much more sense because
Yeah.
it will make it the M2 will be able to handle things a lot better anyway. I think that extra 20% performance will probably just give it enough punch for what it needs. But the M2 Pro provides that option for if you do need something more, but you don't need a Mac Studio. There is still that gap there because let's not forget they've still got that Intel Mac Mini. They still sell it from 2018 as their high-end Mac Mini model, and that one really is begging for Apple Silicon at this point.
How much
because
is
everyone
that
thinks
at
the
this
Mac
point?
Pro. I think it's still pretty pricey. I think it's still over $800 or $900
I'm looking
off the
right
top
now
of my
here.
head.
Yeah, it starts at. No, wait, no, that's the M1. Here it is. It starts at $1,000. It's a Core i5 6-core Intel 630 512 storage. But I don't know if I would. I don't know if I could recommend this to anyone either. This is rough.
No, it's strange, really, because everyone is so focused on the Mac Pro, and people sort of think that's the last one that needs to make the transition to Apple Silicon.
Yeah,
But
it's
of course,
not.
it's not because this is over a year older than the Mac Pro. It's a device that also is not as powerful as the Mac Pro, and it's not modular either. So there's even less excuse to still have that in the lineup. I mean, I guess Apple has kept it there because people use the Mac Mini as a server, and people use it as part of workstations in a different way, and that would be what some businesses would default to. So I assume that's why it's still on sale, but we really do need a high-end option at this point.
Yeah, I'm guessing a lot of the businesses that use it, a lot of server farms use like tons of Mac Minis. I'm wondering if that's still something that Apple Silicon couldn't handle. Well, it definitely couldn't handle right now at this current configuration.
Yeah, they do use the M1 in some server farms, but I assume that Intel model is still required
For
where
specific
those
things.
systems are just not ready for Apple Silicon yet, or even just I don't know if you have specialist apps that you use in your workplace, and your workplace is just reluctant to be relying on Rosetta. If then you have a Mac that is not the Mac Pro to be
Yeah.
able to do that because obviously it's such a small little neat package.
So
But the
would you
time has
say
come, it should have had the M1 Pro realistically by now.
so this episode is more of like things we like and we use and what would recommend basically. So you would it be fair to say for those of you who are out there looking at a Mac, Hartley would 100% recommend his MacBook Pro. And that's the one
Yes.
that he would use the most if it wasn't for a work-life balance of separation there. But what about those who just want a good Mac to kind of do basic things? For me, I think it would be the Air. Would you agree on that?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's really where we're at right now, just because I don't know if the Mac Mini is currently worth it until they update it. So those of you who are like, I just want something basic that I can kind of get and be able to push it a little bit, but not too much, definitely an M2 Air. And then for any of you guys who need anything more, the Pro in either the Pro or Max chips configuration is definitely going to be enough for a lot of you out there. I still use that's what I'm using right now, the M1 Max, and I still think it does just as well as my Ultra Mac Studio at times. Honestly, I very rarely notice any major differences for day-to-day work. So I don't know.
Yeah, and there are good discounts on those machines right now as well.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't encourage buying one because we are expecting an
Sure.
update in just a couple of months, and that could have quite a bit to offer, especially if we're getting a whole new set of Apple Silicon chips. We're not quite sure what fabrication process they'll use,
Yeah.
but there's chances are that we're going to get better specifications on some of those ports, like the SD card slot and the HDMI port, and potentially there could be battery life iterations. Let's not forget that this MacBook Pro is ultimately a first generation model of this type. So the second generation model is going to be able to really refine what is already an incredibly well polished machine. So I would say it possibly is worth waiting, even if you can get a good deal.
I agree. My main device, though, that I use on a daily basis is still the Mac Studio, just because, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue against it for the work that I'm doing, but I don't know that a lot of people really need it, so I do not recommend it for like 90% of you out there. But if you're someone who is working on a lot of intense projects where you need that power and performance from all of the cores that you get, and the GPU performance is fantastic. So yeah, I mean, if you're someone who's going to utilize it for the price, again, I'm still very shocked at the price points of these too. They're not terrible.
Yeah.
So,
Kind of interesting that we've not mentioned the iPad
oh, we're getting there.
as an essential device.
Oh, we're getting there.
I don't know. I don't know if you were going to bring up the iPad because it doesn't seem like
It's not
I
an
don't know
essential
what
device.
your feelings are, but it doesn't seem essential to me at all.
I mean, I'm looking at this from an everyday person standpoint as well.
Even from an everyday person standpoint, do you think that you could justify buying an iPad instead of a Mac, say?
No, not from a work standpoint, but like having an iPad, I think is important.
Right.
If you're someone who like for content consumption, and if you're like, well, I have a TV, what do I need an iPad for? Then you don't. But like for me, there are many times where even if I'm at home, I still watch stuff on my iPad. Definitely, I travel quite a bit, so I would 100% want one with me. So I do use an iPad, and I do think they're important for me for specific things, but I don't think they're essential to most people. I could be wrong, but
No, I would agree. I would think that it's difficult with the iPad because I've tried before. I've thought, oh, I don't need an iPad. I don't really use it. I'll sell what I've got and see how I go for a few months without one. And I always end up buying one again because I miss having it, even just to have my music playing while I'm working, have it on a little stand next to my workstation.
yeah.
It's really nice to have there. It's nice when you want to watch a movie. If you want to read some magazines or some news, it's really good for that. And there are always those times when you're traveling or you need something to take with you that is not quite as hefty or as demanding, or maybe when you don't need a keyboard. And the iPad fits in well with that. But I just don't know if I could justify maybe an iPad Pro.
Well,
That's where I think
what iPad are we
to.
talking here? Because I love my iPad Pro that I have, but I never use it when it comes to, like, I love the idea of it. It's so powerful. I could do a lot of the things on it. I love the Magic Keyboard and how big it is with the 12.9 inch, and like it feels very comfortable to type on. The display is amazing, but like oftentimes what I find myself doing, especially now, I'm trying to consolidate when traveling. I'm still taking this giant 16-inch MacBook Pro with me at times. I often can get away with a iPad Air as my main iPad because it's a good form factor. It's still very powerful. It can still do whatever I need to do that's not editing on a plane. So when I'm on a plane, if I'm doing like admin work, writing up stuff, responding to emails, doing stuff in Slack, talking to you guys about what's next, planning, all of that stuff can be done on an iPad Air easily on the plane, and I'm not like crunched up with the giant MacBook Pro on the tiny little stand that they give you on the tray. So I think that's where I'm reaching for it the most. Even at home, if I'm like on a treadmill and just maybe I'm walking or doing some light running and I want to watch something, I'm reaching for that because it's more comfortable to have there, and it's just kind of the perfect size.
Yeah,
so that would be my recommendation.
I think the next time I buy an iPad, I would buy the 11-inch iPad Pro or the 10.9-inch iPad Air.
Yeah.
I currently have the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, which I bought because I thought I might use it a little bit more like a laptop. And it is great when you're watching a movie with it at home. But when you have the Magic Keyboard with it, it is so heavy. It is such a bulky device, and you just can't get the same viewing angles out of it
Yeah.
as you do from a Mac. And we've talked about this a lot, especially lately with iPadOS 16, that it's just still not there enough in terms of the cursor and obviously Stage Manager, which I've tried to use. I've tried to love it, and I try and work from my iPad or spend a few hours on my iPad about once a month. I keep trying to give it a
I do the
chance,
same thing.
but it just hasn't won me over. So next time it will be more of a content consumption device when I go to buy it. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with the iPad Pro when they actually do redesign it next and change its form factor, make it a little bit more lightweight.
Yeah.
Which we know should be coming in 2024, which is quite a long time, really. So if you've got an iPad Pro right now, probably no point
You'll be
upgrading
fine.
for
Yeah,
at
you'll
least
be
a year.
fine until then, yeah. I think that brings us to the iPhone, which, I mean, obviously it's essential, especially if you're in iOS. I really do like the Pros this year. I think it's a good upgrade. Um, I don't really know what else to say. The Island is good. Live activities I've been using a little bit more. I've been finding that it makes everything a little bit more useful, and I still, I don't know. I just think the pros worth it. I'm still using the Max because the battery life is still very good. I do often wish that I could switch down to the smaller size just to make it a little bit easier to carry around, but it's hard to leave that giant screen and battery. What about you?
I think that there's really at the moment three sets of iPhones to choose from, and not perhaps the ones you would think of, because I don't think the 14s really count, the standard 14s, because the sort of people that I don't know why you would buy an iPhone 14 when you can just buy an iPhone 13 for substantially less, especially if you don't buy it from Apple, because you will be able to find it even cheaper from other retailers, probably with some extra things thrown in like a better warranty. So if you're looking for the cheapest possible iPhone or an entry level iPhone, the iPhone SE is undoubtedly the best choice. If you're coming from a much older device with a home button, you don't really need to get the new design unless you are really into it and you want the OLED display, you want that all screen design. The iPhone SE is perfect. And if you want the next level up and you're maybe already used to that OLED display, maybe you're coming from something like an iPhone 10, an iPhone 10s, then the iPhone 13 is perfect. You don't need to get the 14. And I completely agree with you that the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max are the absolute sort of crowning iPhones, more so than they have been in previous years. Because I know that's kind of an obvious statement, but it's
Yeah.
because the difference between the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Pro is quite significant this year,
Yeah.
especially when you think in terms of that 48 megapixel camera, dynamic island, even just the battery life, the fact that you've got a different chip for the first time. We're talking about a device that if you're already considering maybe the 14 plus, I would say forget that extra half inch of screen real estate and just choose
Yeah.
something that is a little more advanced, because I think you would get more out of it and it would feel more modern in years to come.
And especially if you're subsidizing, I mean, it's like a $10 difference to go between that and the even the Pro Max. It's really not that much of a difference per month. And so, in which case, I would say if you really still want to stick with that screen size, it would be 100% worth it to jump from a Plus to a Pro Max, in my opinion. Even the always on display, which I know not everyone's going to be using the betas, so it's stay tuned, but take my word for it. So much more useful now that you can turn your screen black and hide notifications if you want to. But even just, I never thought about this, but like I was so excited for the always on display. And then I saw the battery hit. And then even with updates, the battery got a little bit better, but it was still pretty bad. And if I wanted to put like a personal picture up there, it's not like anything crazy. People can look at it, but like then it oftentimes leads to conversations with maybe you don't want to have, or like I don't know, maybe you don't want people to see your wallpaper all the time, and you don't want people to see the notifications that come through if you're like at work and someone's, you're in a meeting and maybe you put your phone on the table and it's face up and a notification comes through. I don't know. It could be distracting to others. And there's just, there are use cases for the new features that are in the beta 3 right now that will be coming in 16.2, correct?
Yes.
It should be in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. You should be getting it where you can now turn off the wallpaper from being on when you have always on display. It'll just go to a black screen. And with OLED, that saves you battery life because it's only illuminating the pixels of the things that's displayed on your screen, which case it would just be the time and whatever widgets you have. And then, if you want to hide your notifications from popping up, you can do that too. And so I guess that kind of makes always on display slightly less useful because kind of the whole point would be to see not only the time, but what widgets or what notifications are coming through. So I keep that on, but I like that it goes to a single black screen, saves battery, and it just has become something that I've turned back on because in the beginning I turned it off. I know you didn't. You liked it at first, and then what happened?
I was very skeptical of the feature when it was rumored because I just thought, I've got an Apple Watch with an always on display. What is this really giving me?
Yeah.
But I was sold within hours of opening my device because I've got one of the Belkin MagSafe chargers on my desk. And so just to be able to have my iPhone in my line of sight with the time and my activity rings and the temperature and my notifications was a big step up. And it was just so nice to just have that in your field of view. Even I set a lot of timers because I like to work in Pomodoros, which is a productivity technique that anyone should look up if they don't know what that is.
Well, it's 25 minutes and then
5-minute breaks.
5-minute breaks, yeah.
And it keeps you going for longer because you can retain your focus in shorter blocks. So I work like that. So I set a lot of timers on my iPhone. I use shortcuts to run them. And that enables me to just keep my timer just in my field of vision. It helps me maintain my focus for longer. And I can obviously glance over at the time. I mean, I know I could use a physical clock for these things, but obviously, my iPhone's on my desk anyway. So it's giving it a little bit more purpose. So I really like the feature. And of course, if you choose a standard 14, you're just not going to get that. And if you don't care about these features, then get the iPhone 13. I mean, there will be some people, I always feel I'm too harsh on the iPhone 14 Plus, but there will be a very tiny slither of customers that do not care about any of the pro features. They don't care. They don't even know what a 48 megapixel camera is.
Yeah.
But they do want a big display and they don't want anything that's too heavy and they want something with better battery life. So I know that there will be a small percentage of people that want it. We believe it's around the same proportion of customers that bought the iPhone 13 mini and iPhone 12 mini, which is around 5%. So not that many, but there will be some people that do still want that device.
And if you're someone who wants a Pro because you want the cameras, but maybe you don't care about a 48 megapixel camera, but maybe you like where I'm getting at with this is my father-in-law wanted a new iPhone. He's like, should I just get the 14 Pro? He didn't want a Pro Max. So it was either 14 Pro or 13 Pro. And I'm like, just get the 13 Pro because for him, he didn't really care about all those features. He just wanted something that was going to take good photos and, it was going to be new. It was coming from an iPhone 8. So if you're in that camp and you can find a better deal and save money on that, I would say the difference between the 13 Pro and the 14 Pro, besides the dynamic island and the always on display and the 48 megapixel camera, if you don't care about any of those three, but you still want a Pro device, then, 13 Pro is still definitely really good. Especially, I think mostly he was also looking at the 13 and the 14. At that point, if you can get a 13 Pro over just a regular 14, yeah, by all means do that. Especially since you're sharing the same chip too, which is strange to think about.
Yeah, you're only getting a couple of extra features in there. You're getting car crash detection, photonic engine. There might be a battery life increase. You might get one or two extra GPU cores in the chip. But there is really no difference between those devices that's worth it for the people those devices are targeted at.
That was the comparison. I'm sorry. It was the lure of having a 14, regular 14, or a 13 Pro. And I think people get like, oh, well, the 14 is obviously better. And I mean, no, not in this case. I would say
No.
you would just get the 13 Pro if it's the same price or less. By all means, do that is my recommendation. That's where it was, not the 14 Pro, because there are some differences that I would be like, hey, I mean, if they're around the same price, then yeah, I mean, you should definitely get the 14 Pro, because even if you don't think you're going to use them, you might. Just like the always on display. I feel like a lot of people probably didn't think they would care until they actually get it. And the island, man, live activities, I really enjoy now that apps are starting to get it. I am a little skeptical to use it all the time just because of the battery life, but for like sports, that's where it's been a huge like upgrade for me, because I don't have time to watch like 100 or 82 basketball games. That's way too many. And so, if you just want to know what's going on in the background and be able to glance at it without like picking up the phone and being rude and trying to see the scores or something, like that's such a great way. And eventually we'll get Uber, and what were the things that they showed off?
Yeah,
And it's just
I
not
think
here
they were just
yet.
mock-ups. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I always remember, just people have been talking about this lately, and I remember when they unveiled the Apple Watch, they showed it off with loads of apps that just never came to it.
Never
So I do
existed.
just wonder, are these live activities ever coming, or at least the ones that
And who
they initially showed off?
who came up with those? Like, did Apple create like an Uber specific, and Uber's just sitting there like, whoa, dude, we didn't we weren't
Yeah,
planning on doing this. I mean, my guess is Uber was like, yeah, we'll draw up or Lyft or whoever it was, and I think it was Lyft. Or it was both.
well, yeah. I mean, they've got to be coming at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it
I
makes
think at
sense.
least with Apple Watch apps, I understand it more because those apps maybe were not actually so useful on the Apple Watch, and we know that there's not been a great ecosystem of apps, but for the Apple Watch. But Dynamic Island can definitely take advantage of live activities properly in a way that is useful. So those apps, Apple has chose those apps for a reason, because it
Yeah.
can be useful. So I hope they're coming anyway.
I do too. That would be very useful. There's a couple of sports score ones that are out there, but now in the latest beta, the Apple TV app does it, so that's nice. So I've just been using first party. Flighty is a good app if you travel a lot and you want to track flights, not just your flight, but every flight, which is interesting if you're in the market of tracking flights. That could get kind of expensive, but yeah, I mean, there's some good apps coming out there, and I highly encourage any developers that may or may not be listening to get some good, useful live activities and dynamic island
Yeah.
features up there, so we have more. And yeah, I mean, I think that covers like all the stuff that we use. Like, we're not trying to promote Apple and tell you to go buy these things. If you are happen to be in the market for some of these things, this is the reason why we're talking about it, because I genuinely use every single thing that we talked about on a daily basis. And if I didn't have the luxury of getting these anyways, I would go and buy them because I use them. Maybe not a Mac Studio. I don't think I need that. But, it's nice to have.
Yeah, I think so. I think that if you're not everyone, this is the thing, is everyone uses their Apple devices differently. Everyone sort of sets up their own ecosystem of devices themselves that works for them. So it will be the case that other people will have completely different even ways of understanding how they use their devices. There will be some people that use, say, their Apple Watch with cellular and barely use their iPhone, and there will be people that don't even have an Apple Watch and are all in on their iPhone 13 Pro Max, and they use that more like an iPad. So you kind of got to find what works for you, but in hearing how it works for other people, it can kind of make you think about how you want to grow your little system of devices yourself.
Yep. And, of course, let us know. That's the whole point. I want to know what everybody's doing, and it could inspire me to use something differently. I'm always looking for that just to keep things fresh. I like change. I know some people don't like change. I like to change things up as much as possible. It just keeps things exciting. But we didn't talk about what your favorite non-Apple. I mean, it was kind of the question I asked you was what would you buy? But let's pivot to what's your favorite non-Apple branded. Could be Apple related or adjacent, or could not be at all. What's your favorite thing that you've been using, let's say in the last few months to a year? that you really
Um,
enjoy?
well, if I hadn't already mentioned the Kindle in this podcast, it would have
Okay,
been the Kindle.
Kindle. You could still
Um,
say that.
if it's it would be the Kindle, but I'll say something different, which is I've got a Keychron. I think it's the K3
Nice.
mechanical keyboard, which I really like. So I'm writing all day. I used to use the Apple Magic Keyboard, and it was good, but it was a little bit sort of. It's obviously a very shallow keyboard, so
Hmm.
it never gave me the feedback that I wanted, and being able to choose the switches that I wanted for this keyboard. And I got one that's a low profile mechanical keyboard because I'm of a generation that never used proper mechanical keyboards, so they do feel wrong to me. I've tried to use them; there's too much travel.
It's
So
a
this
lot.
kind of provides me, yeah. So it provides me with a kind of in between of what I'm used to with the Magic Keyboard, but something that gives me a bit more feedback. So I really like that, and it's got RGB backlighting and loads of lighting options. I mean, I mainly just leave it on white, but you can choose a color that suits your desk space nicely. I know
Yep.
that I can replace the keys, and as I say, that choice of the switches is really nice, and they're quite inexpensive as well for keyboards, and they're obviously optimized for Mac.
Keychron is great. I love Keychron. I have one right over there. I'm actually looking at, and I have a couple at home. I like it. I got really into mechanical keyboards for a while, mostly just kind of collecting different ones because I thought they looked cool, and then just like switching them out every once in a while. Um, I don't know if you caught my shameless plug again, desk setup video, in which case I
Yeah.
mentioned the Logitech mini mechanical keyboard that they just came out with is great, and I'm actually still using that one. It's one of those ones where like some mechanical keyboards that have a lot of travel, like you mentioned, that really hurts the wrist after a while because you really gotta like press hard. And I like to type kind of like I'm gliding, so that's why I've always loved the Magic Keyboard because it is so shallow and you can kind of like move faster. So I wanted something that was low profile, smaller, doesn't isn't going to hurt the wrist. You don't have to be as proper with it. And I would recommend the Keychron that you talked about and this mechanical MX Mechanical, I believe is what they call the Logitech version. And there's a whole slew of other desk accessories and things that I mentioned um, in that video. But the one thing that I'm enjoying recently, I wasn't enjoying it at first. I had a very bad experience getting it set up, but it was mostly not user error, but mostly a me problem at first, more so than a device problem. I got the Level Lock Plus that has Apple HomeKey, and I wanted to really test out Apple HomeKey because it seems intriguing. And I mean it's very particular in the kind of sizing requirements for the door, and so I had to like actually do work to the door to get it to fit. And weirdly, instead of just saying like, "Hey, we're having issues with the door and the fit being a problem," it would just like error itself out and kind of make it seem like there was a connection problem rather than it just being not the proper fit. And so once you kind of figure that out and you get it to easily, lock and unlock itself and it's calibrated well, it's been pretty flawless. And I don't use my front door all the time, but we do to get my son off the bus so we don't have to keep opening and closing the garage door because it makes a lot of noise and it wakes up other kids in the house. And so we want to just kind of walk out that door and then come back in that door. You just stick your phone. You don't have to do anything. You just walk up, put your phone to the door, and it automatically unlocks it. And it shows you the little cool, satisfying animation of the key kind of coming in. I don't know why, but I've really been into that. So there's only like 2 or 3 locks out there that have this right now too. So
Yeah, it's something I definitely want to get into because I'm really into home automation
yeah,
and accessories, and that's the one thing that I'm missing. So I'm going to be looking for something that I don't know if that's actually available in the UK, but I'm going to see. There definitely are some that are available, so I'm going to see what I can get hold of for that because it fits so nicely in with Apple's whole idea that you don't really need to take your wallet and your keys with you. That you can just have everything on one, even just your Apple Watch. That's basically all you need. And if you also happen to have a car that supports the car key feature, you're sorted pretty much.
I think a lot of people out there will be like, well, I have one that has a keypad, and yeah, we used that before, and that is definitely just as good in some instances, but like I don't know, one of mine had like a glass keypad, so that sometimes in cold weather or anything just became kind of an issue. And if you mess up, you got it like this. I feel like it's the same amount of time to just take your phone out and potentially faster and just hold it right up to it, and it automatically unlocks, and then you can set it to auto lock before, once you close the door and everything. So I'm super into that, especially if you're somebody who uses your front door to your house a lot. Here in the U.S., I feel like a lot of people who have attached garages, it's not that big of a deal. But I found use case for it, so maybe you might out there too. I know Akara, right? Is that how you pronounce it? Aqara?
Yes. Yeah.
I believe they have, because I wanted to ask. I was talking to them about one of them, and they said it does not work for the U.S. right now, so I had to find a different one.
Well, I think that will probably be the one that I end up going for.
Yeah.
It also depends on what color options are available and the finishes, because when you're choosing something for the home, those things become a lot more important. I do actually.
You just do what I do, and now I have a massive spot on my door that needs to be painted because it doesn't take up the lock that was previously on there. It's like such a tiny lock in Deadbolt, and the one before was longer because it had to fit the keypad and had batteries on the back, and so yeah, it's just the size of a normal Deadbolt because all of the smart mechanism is actually in the lock itself and the little bolt that comes across and actually locks the door. And so that's the biggest difference, is that it can keep its footprint so small. So now I have a giant part that needs to be painted because it's all white on a green, a blue door.
I do actually have a bonus mention, which is something I think you also have used. So I think it's a good one to bring up. And I feel I should bring it up because I'm much more loyal to this device than I am actually to my Keychron. The Keychron I've only been using for about not even a year, maybe about 6 to 8 months. But this other device I have been using for about 3 years, every day, at least twice a day. So I feel this is the one I should mention. And that is the Ember Smart Mug.
Ah, yes. The good old Ember.
Exactly, because it's a product that is so maligned and people think is so silly, and people don't think it's a gimmick, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I've had 3 of them. They 2 of them have died on me, but their customer service is so good.
The battery life on some of them is not great because, think about a traditional battery. You're not supposed to charge all the time. But what you do with this mug is you charge it all the time because you put it on the coaster. It's just a natural thing is to put it on the coaster. And that's how it charges, and that's how it also keeps it hot infinitely. So, the moment you do take it off after doing that for so long, the battery life is definitely degrading by then. And so that's my only issue with it. But I do, and it was too small. And they fixed most of that. I think the battery life is inherently better because it's larger on the larger 14-ounce mugs. That's the one that I would recommend. Are you talking about the actual cups, right? Not the travel mug?
Yeah, but I've also used the travel mug.
I mean, I've used both of them too. But I would personally recommend more so the cups at home.
Yeah, I like the cups. And in my situation, I keep the coaster on my desk, so it's always ready to go. And then it's even pretty easy to clean. But I have nothing but good things to say about it. The app is not the most fantastic thing in the world, and it's not really the app's fault that your phone can't always be connected to it, because that's a limitation that Apple has imposed. But if you're willing to just open your app to when you want to get a little notification that it's reached the temperature you like, I really like that. And it's almost a bad luxury, because it means then you suddenly start to get quite fussy about what temperature you want to drink your beverages at. Oh, that's what it does to you.
Oh, it's yes. And you want to talk about a bad luxury, and I swear this is the last thing I'll bring up, because we're into coffee now, Well, I'm going to use it for coffee. Do you drink a lot of coffee, or do you? I know tea is very big out there.
I drink tea and coffee. I'm usually one of each.
Okay, so with me, a complete luxury item that is 100% not necessary for most people out there. I definitely understand that. I've gotten into smart-ish coffee machines,
right?
That make espressos and you can make lattes, and we primarily use it for just regular drip coffee. But the luxury, I would say this, what I like the most about them, and so you could buy any machine at any price point that as long as it does this thing well, it has a built-in canister to hold the beans inside of the machine, and it grinds the beans for you and then makes coffee. If you can find a machine that doesn't cost a whole lot that does that well for you, get that. It is life-changing if you are somebody who likes to use whole beans and have fresh coffee that's ground like every morning. I don't have time to do the whole process of like doing pour over and try. I don't want to do all that. I don't want to grind it in the morning and have to measure things out. I've become so spoiled by these machines that I've used in the last year that I use all the time that I would highly recommend them, but I realize at the price point might not be worth it. So, just a shout out to Spin is the one that I have at home. And then here I've been using the Terra Cafe, which, by the way, they just announced a new one. And all of the issues that I have had with the Terra Cafe, the first one, seem to be 100% addressed on this new one. I have not tested it, but just from the looks and what they've described of the changes that they made, it looks incredible. They've now made it that it connects with your iPhone too, so huge bonus there. That if you just want to wake up in the morning and press a button on your phone and have some coffee ready to go, because it does again grind and do all of that stuff for you. So they're expensive. This is all I'm going to say. But if you're looking for a good holiday gift for somebody out there, maybe your significant other or someone you want to drop $800 to $1,000 on, I realize you must really love that person if you're going to do that. If they're a huge coffee lover, I would recommend that. So
you can actually integrate drip coffee machines into your HomeKit setup.
Yes, but it's only very specific, basic coffee pots.
You need one that has a switch that you can leave on and then use it with a smart plug. I have tried this, and it does work very well.
It works great. It's just, if you're anyone out there who wants a coffee pot that looks good and has slightly more functionality, and you don't have to spend money on that at all. You can get a coffee pot that looks good and has like the ability to schedule, or just has a clock and looks at, you can get that for like $50. That's not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but they don't have the basic function of when I push on, it brews. Those are reserved for like $20 coffee pots that are just, and my in-laws use them, and it makes fantastic coffee. So I really can't even sit here on my platform and suggest that you buy $1,000 coffee machine because her $20 Mr. Coffee Pot works just fine. But that's the one that those, if you're sitting at home and you're like, I want something that's smart.
If you're already thinking of an Ember Smart Mug, maybe you've got the travel mug.
This is not for you.
The other one, and you've got your 3 sets of AirPods. Then maybe
it's not for you.
You can consider that.
Yeah, because you're probably not using a $20 coffee pot, but there's nothing wrong with it. And those people out there are the only ones that can use HomeKit with your coffee pot, because there's no other.
Yep.
That's the only thing I'm hoping. I don't think it does, but that Terra Cafe, if the upgrade on the new one that they did, they've added the ability to use your iPhone. I highly doubt it's HomeKit enabled, but that would have been cool.
Because Apple hasn't supported it yet. Apple don't support loads of accessories, so you have to kind of set it up just as a smart plug. But it's all you need if you just want to wake up to fresh coffee. It's absolutely perfect for that. But you do have to get it ready the night before. That's the only thing. I remember when I had a Wi-Fi connected Nespresso machine. If you forget the night before to put the next pod in it, you've got a problem where you forget to put a cup under it. So you do have to try not to overcomplicate these things.
I mean, I guess I would say the two machines that I mentioned before, the original Terra Cafe, you cannot use your phone. It's not like that smart. It does have a screen, but it's simply just for adjusting some things and then picking what you want. But the Spin, we use that at home. I do love that. That has a great app that you can adjust all the settings and the adjustments and make fine-tune like coffee levels and water levels. And if you're really into all that, you can do it. Most people who are really it's a weird kind of like gray area, because most people who are really into all that prefer to do it manually with an expensive espresso machine where they're still using their hands. But for those who are into that but just want a fully automatic, there's not many of those, and that's the two that I mentioned. But you can use the app, and it's even scan coffee bags, and it'll look into the coffee that you're using and use the exact right amount of. I don't even begin to understand all of that, but I like the idea of it. But yeah, that one, it will, as long as you make sure there's water in it, and that everything else is not full, the container's not full. I mean, you can pretty much wake up in the morning and hit a button and it'll brew everything for you. Just make sure you put a mug there. I've forgotten. before.
Yes.
So yeah, you know.
Well, in conclusion, Apple needs to make a coffee machine.
Yeah, that would be great. It would probably cost $1 bajillion, but it would be awesome. Hey,
That's all I want. I want Apple Watch notifications if I've forgotten to leave a cup in it. I want a integration with HomeKit.
hey,
This is really
SIRI, make
what
me
we
some
want.
coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we need. That's really the ultimate. If you've taken away anything from this episode, it's that Apple needs to make a HomeKit
Yeah.
coffee pot right now. That's the only thing that matters in my life. All right. I think that's enough. We've gone way longer than I honestly thought we would. So, yeah, I don't know. Are we doing one next week? Do we have?
Hopefully, we'll find something.
It's getting into that time where eventually we're going to take a break, but we do have some plans coming up. So, follow us on all the things that you can follow us on, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.